All right, everybody, thanks for joining us today on the third episode of 911-ish. I am Jeff Williams, and first I'd just like to welcome you all here. We are trying to shed a little light on what public safety is, how it works, and hopefully do it with a little bit of a sense of humor and some comedy in it. And today, actually, I'll get introductions here in a minute. So,
5840, speaking question assistance. We have a possible 211 in progress at the Bank of America. Bank of America, located north of Kittredge. We have shots fired.
All units, officer needs help. At the Bank of America, located north of Kittredge, officer needs help. Bank of America, 911 emergency.
I'm at a drive-thru right now. I ordered my food 3 times. I asked 4 different times to wait.
You know what the problem is? I got a man in the pool. He's got his driver stuck in the pump line. What? You're kidding me. I'm telling you, honest to God, something you really got to say to believe.
all right, so once again, I'm Jeff Williams. This is 911-ish, and today we are joined by Mike Martinez. Say hi, Mike.
Hello, everybody.
And Mike is currently, I don't know what's your title, owner, CEO,
You could be all of the above.
all of the above.
Yeah.
Of what company do you own now?
Well, now it's South Bay Custom Printing.
And it used to be Guns and Hoses.
Guns and Hoses Gear.
Yeah. So you do like silk screening and stuff, right? Tell us what you do, Mike.
Yeah, screen printing, embroidery, stickers, banners, you name it. We do it all.
And Mike has a very interesting niche in this world. He does predominantly law enforcement and fire, right?
That's it. That's why we started Guns and Hoses.
Yeah. So a lot of really cool stuff. And what's your website if anybody wants to go look at it?
SouthBayCustomPrinting.com, and we also have gunsandhosesgear.com.
I'm not going to lie, when I first learned Guns and Hoses, I thought it was Guns and Hose. I swear to God, I was like, holy shit, he really just did that. And he put it on Instagram.
Everybody calls it Guns and Roses when they call me.
Guns and Roses. Well, you know, hopefully don't get a trademark infringement on those guys.
Oh, don't get me started on that kind of stuff.
So before you started doing all of this custom screen printing stuff, you were, actually I should say we were, because this is how OG we were, you worked for the El Camino College Police Department as a dispatcher, correct?
Yes,
And you basically did everything there.
Everything.
Yeah. So we started you started before me at El Camino, and I started El Camino in, I think, 2005. So when did you start there?
I was early 05.
Early 05? Okay. So, yeah, I think I was late 05, like December or something like that.
I was March.
Yeah. I came in when, like, Toto was there and Sanderson and Baruth.
All the OG guys.
Yeah. All the South Bay and Anaheim guys now. So, yeah, it's an interesting story, man. When I started there, one of the CSOs at the time, I won't say which one, he was my training officer as a cadet. And, oh, my God, he hated me. He thought, he thought, rightfully so, that I was the cockiest son of a bitch on the planet.
Oh, my God.
And basically recommended that I be terminated after like 2 days of working.
Who would ever want that?
I know. I thought it was awesome, but
You know what the best thing is, though, is you named some and you missed one, and I think that might be the one you missed.
no, I didn't. I know who you're talking about. He's a copper in the South Bay.
Yes.
And I just can't think of his name.
Okay.
I swear to God, it wasn't him.
Okay.
I swear to God. So he is, the one I'm talking about is a police officer, but he does not work in the South Bay.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So, what was his?
Knox?
Knox. Thank God. I couldn't remember his name. Yeah. Because he was only there for a little while when I started. And then he left and Sanderson got the CSO spot. Yeah. And then, dude, you've heard of the candy cane story, right?
No.
Oh, God. So I'll have Sanderson on one time and he'll tell me too, or tell the story in more depth. But basically, we were there one Christmas and I was on the, I don't know, late afternoon shift. Everybody was gone, right? Graveyard PD had already started. So part of his duties was to like clean the pepper ball guns.
Oh, geez.
And they were under the CSO desk, right? So, and the station had all the decorations up with the candy canes in the windows and all that stuff, right? So there was also a riot helmet on his desk.
Oh, man.
So I put the riot helmet on, grabbed a couple of candy canes and one of the pepper ball guns, and posed for a picture that he took.
I can only imagine.
And then, so the shit went down, and basically, like, he had to step up to the chief's office and be like, no, he shouldn't be fired because I'm the one that took the picture. So,
oh, man.
Yeah. And then the chief, this is back the day when it was D'Amico, I think. Yeah, and he was just like, "Oh, okay, Chris, cool. Thanks for letting us know. Bye."
Yep.
Yeah, so it was a shit show.
What a many.
You're right. So,
What a many.
did you start as a dispatcher there or as a cadet?
Started as a cadet.
Yeah. Okay.
At Fresh, I think I was barely 18.
Yeah. I was 19 when I started because I started at Torrance in 2003 and went to Elko in 2005 as a cadet.
See, I was at Torrance in 01, but I was a baby.
You were Explorer, right?
Yeah, in 01. Yeah. And then Elko 2005, I was still in high school.
Oh, shit, really?
I had to take classes while I was a cadet, so I was taking college classes after high school.
Oh, damn. So now they got this weird, one of my coworkers, her daughter is still in high school, but she's going to graduate with an AA.
Nice.
Because she can take like college class, but whole other story.
Nice.
Right? So, yeah, when I started as a cadet too, and then when I started, I think you were part-time in dispatch.
Yes, I would think I was either being trained or just finished training.
Josh? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you ever hit your hand with a ruler?
No, he knew better.
Okay.
But he may have. But I hit it one day, so he couldn't find it.
Yeah. Oh, man, it sounds really bad, but he made my hands red.
Oh, not me. Not me.
Yeah. So, did he ever just use the camera, go down the parking lot and read plates off?
No, he didn't, actually.
Yeah. So
I think I got the least amount of, I guess, issues while I was training because I kind of stood in the background when he was training somebody else before me.
Oh, okay.
While I was a cadet. Huh. So, the escort details, I was always that. And late at night, I would come in and just watch him train somebody else.
Okay.
Who happens to be an officer now.
Yeah, well,
And not there. And
that's what Elko did, man.
Yeah.
They just bred officers.
Yep. And I would just pick up on the training, and then when that person didn't make it or didn't like it, I forgot what it was. I think he didn't like it.
Okay.
So then I just stepped in and started from where he really left off.
Was this an officer that became a K-9 that's no longer an officer here?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, he was that one was fully trained.
Yeah, I remember, but I know he hated it.
Oh, I know. I think a lot of people hated it.
Yeah. I mean, especially guys who became cops hated it because it was just the antithesis of what they wanted to do. So,
exactly.
Yeah, that's kind of how I started. Like, I remember one day Josh was just like, "Hey, come here and sit down and answer the phone." And I was like, "Okay, how do I do that?"
Yep.
Yeah, and then I just started, and then I just kind of fell into it. And then the first time I kind of understood I was going to be good at it, Jeff Lewis.
Oh, geez.
Oh, yeah. Tons of stories there we can't talk about. Came in and was just like, "You should think about doing this instead of being a cop." And I'm like, "That's insulting."
That was rude, yeah.
But thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's kind of how mine started, and it was just kind of.
So funny about him is
Lewis.
Yes, I remember on training he, you know how it was. They always try to run these plates and do all these stops and everything. And I had a good memory back then, and I would memorize stuff really quickly. So I found out that he would go through the parking lots and read off the plates of the employees. So instead of giving the return, I knew what it was. So I'd be like, "Oh, those are confidential and this and that," just to mess with him.
Then, did he do it just to screw with you?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
That's actually pretty interesting. I remember, oh man, that guy used to come to the station at night and it was just like a shit show. I mean, I've never done so many traffic stops in my life.
Yep.
It's crazy. So, and he was probably the first kind of like challenging guy that challenged me in the dispatch too. And then I, on recommendation of Josh, kind of met up with Adrian Michelson at RCC and Bonnie Agee. There's an old name.
Yeah.
And
that's task force name right there.
Yeah, I know. And then hopped over to RCC, and the rest is kind of history. So, which was an eye-opening experience going from a college to a multi-jurisdictional agency. But
definitely,
yeah. So like because you were a dispatcher until basically last year.
This year, May of this year.
May this year, okay. So you were there dispatching from 06 to 2021.
05, really, because I was trained while I was a cadet. So I'd say 05 till this year. So what's that, 17 years?
17 years. Damn, that's a long time, man. So in that time, like, what did you see as one of the most difficult aspects of that job?
I think for that job in that particular department was doing everything as a solo person.
Yeah, because you're sitting there in dispatch.
Yes.
Even during the busy part of the day. I mean, given there were like special events where you'd have somebody up there, but like 99% of the time, it's just you doing the radio, the phones, the front desk, records, doing all that stuff, right?
People walking in asking for stuff. So yeah, that was probably the most difficult. You have the phones going off, somebody at the window asking for something. That was difficult.
Yeah. I remember that, and I remember the one thing is when I left, I was just like, "Oh God, I don't got to talk to people in person anymore."
Yep.
Yeah. So I hear that. So we got that is one of the most difficult parts. Like, what was easy for you to do? Or was it just so routine after a while that it just became numbing?
I would say routine, just because looking back in the Explorer days, back at Torrance, for some reason it seemed that when I was on ride-alongs with some of the officers that I'm so close in contact with, I always paid attention to where the calls were.
Mm-hmm.
And I usually was on the radio for the officer for the calls that we had.
Yeah, when you were on the ride-along?
Yeah. So it seemed like, looking back now, I'm like, wow, that was kind of breeding me to do that in a way.
Absolutely.
And then paying attention to where everybody was, that's kind of what the dispatcher's position was. And I mean, look what happened.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. I remember I had already been working at RCC for like 2 years. And then Josh set me up to do, like, El Camino was putting on like a checkpoint or something like that.
Yes.
And Josh asked me to come dispatch. And I was like, okay. And then the night before, Lewis took me out, just kind of show me what was going on, how it was going to be working.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember sitting in the unit with him, and I don't know who was in dispatch, but was like trying to get a hold of him for like 3 times.
Yeah.
And he was just, I was like, hey, the radio's for you. The radio's for you. The radio's for you.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, how the hell do you hear that? And I'm like, I listen to it for a living. What do you mean, how do I hear it?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you're the deaf one, just like every other, no offense, just like every other officer when I got to tell him 5 times.
That's exactly it.
So, yeah. Oh, it's such a pet peeve.
Even leaving. I mean, we still have that dispatch here. We can listen to multiple conversations at once.
Oh, yeah. All the time, man. All the time. Like, I'm sitting there, like, last night I was at home at my parents' house and we were watching Home Alone.
Yeah.
And I had my AirPod in, listening to a video. I think somebody's car's turned on.
Somebody's having a blast
Somebody's
outside.
having a party.
Good boy.
So.
Oh, it looks like the Torrance float.
Oh, the Santa Parade?
Maybe. I saw some ambers flashing.
Oh, that's probably it because it got canceled for the rain
last
2 nights ago or 2 nights on. So, yeah. So, anyways, I had my AirPod in and I was like listening to a video on my phone while watching Home Alone, and my dad is like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I'm like, "Man, I can listen to both. It's not a big deal. I do it all the time."
That's an OG right there.
Yeah. Oh,
come on.
Yeah, 73 to 03, man.
Jeez.
Right? So, yeah, I don't know if I'll get him on. Some of the stories he's told me are interesting, to say the least.
You can edit it or something.
So, I do remember one of the things my dad taught me when I was 19 years old and I was going through baton and ASP training, and I did it and then went through rescue control. I came home and I told him blah, blah, blah. And he's like, in 30 years, I never had to hit anybody with a stick. And I'm like, well, I don't know if I'd call it hit him. He's like, nope, it never looks good to hit anybody with a stick. And I was like, yeah, but isn't it look better? He's like, nope, it's never good to hit somebody with a stick because then they can tell you in court that you hit them with a stick. I mean, this was all before cameras, right? And all that stuff. So I was just like, oh.
Yeah, because those old school ones, I think, were like wooden or something.
Oh,
right?
yeah. It was just a 30-inch piece of like hard oak that was just covered in paint. That's what it
was, exactly.
Yeah. So I still have my dad's asp in my room. It's got his number engraved on it, and the paint's like 3/4 gone.
Wow.
It's legit old school.
That's funny.
And my dad at his house has, I don't know what they're called, but they're like the 100-year-old. They're literally, it's a leather. It's a leather handle with a lead ball on top that's covered with leather. That's a sap, I think, is what they actually call it. And he's got a couple of them in his garage. And he's just like, yeah, when I started in the early 70s, this is the kind of stuff we carried. And I'm like, you used to be able to carry them? He's like, oh, yeah, you just hit people with it if you needed to.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where the
pocket
the sap pocket came from. The people nowadays, I mean, the flashlights now are so small they don't even have to put those in the sap pockets.
Heck no. So going back with your dad, so I remember the first time seeing him is at Torrance, and you when we did the driver's trainings.
Oh yeah. He was in charge
of those fun days.
Oh heck yeah, man, that was great. I started volunteering for that when I was 14.
Yeah,
that's how I kind of got involved in Torrance because my dad. But then I started doing driver's training with him, and then Steve Danjo and Robert Senior Van Lingen, who owns Van Lingentel.
Yes,
and I remember. Oh man, that was so much fun.
They had such a fun crew over there.
Yeah.
And every day was lunch at In-N-Out or something.
Hell yeah, it was.
It was right down the street.
Yep. Oh man, that was such fun. But all those cones sucked.
Oh yeah,
There's so many cones.
I mean, that was our job as the explorers, picking up those cones. Yep. But luckily, we got to drive too.
Yeah, but during lunch, they just kind of like, have fun.
But I remember somebody. Was it Donnie Edmonds? Somebody remember Donnie?
Hell yeah.
So I think he jumped in the car with me. He's like, "All right, chase that car." I'm like, "Excuse me."
Steve Danger did it to me a couple times, and I remember I was like. Yeah, we were 16 years old, and drivers, I was like, I got this. I'm hot shit. And I got in the car, and he was just like, okay. And we stopped. He's like, you suck.
Turn. And he's like, my turn.
No, he literally looked at me. He's like, you suck. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
And he was just like, now that your ego's dropped, let me show you how to do this the right way. And he like taught me how to do it.
Yep.
And I was like, okay.
That was so much fun.
Hell yeah, it was, man. I remember that. And I did the Armed Forces Day Parade a few times.
Yes.
So the Armed Forces Day Parade, they did the barbecue at
Torrance Park, I think.
I don't think it's Torrance Park. I don't know what the name of the park is. It's the really long, skinny one next to the bank and
That's
Torrance
right.
Bakery.
Yes. Okay.
Right from Torrance Bakery.
Yes.
And they did they barbecued for all the vets that came out and all the Armed Forces people. I swear to God, I have never smelled like more beef. It was horrible. I smelled like barbecue for like 4 straight days after that. It was so bad.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I remember that. So it is that long park.
Yeah. I don't remember what it's called, though.
I forget.
Yeah. This is what you get when you don't work in the city of Torrance anymore.
Yeah, I forget.
So, but yeah, you like that?
I do remember the barbecues, though. And I remember him always running the barbecue.
Yeah, him and John Newman. John Newman. Dude, that guy, when I used to live in Torrance, even years and years and years and years, like decade after I left Torrance, I like parked during street sweeping one time because I just got off Graveyard and there was like no parking. And I'd park there and I'd come outside and have an envelope on my window. I'm like, fuck. And I'd go out there and I'd open it and it just says, "Move your car, idiot." And I'm like, awesome. Yes, thank you, John.
That is awesome.
Hell yeah. So, and that was before I had protected plates too. So I was just like, he knew.
Oh, protected plates, man. That's the best.
Oh, it makes things so much easier.
Except when there's chippies.
Yeah. Well, somebody's got to do it. But I think what's better than protected plates now that I found is once you personalize the plates.
Yes.
You just have to make it something that the general public has no idea. But
remember my personalized plates?
It was like ENT CD3 or something like that.
Yeah, ERT CD3.
Yeah.
And Route Clip-3, that was my truck.
Yeah.
I got rid of that before the academy.
Yeah. So I have one. Obviously, I'm not going to say what it is, but it basically is en route to a meal break.
Yeah, of course.
And I remember one time I had that plate on my old car, and we were leaving. It was me and Amelia.
Okay.
We were leaving. I think it was, what's the music venue at the Griffith or just outside the Griffith?
I have no idea.
So there's a big outdoor famous music venue there, right? And so we were leaving this concert that we went to, and LAPD's out there directing traffic.
Yeah.
And like, I'm sitting at the beginning line, and he just looks at my plate and stops traffic, and he just points at me and goes, "Go ahead." And as I'm driving past with my window, he's like, "Nice plate."
That's awesome.
I was just like, somebody finally got it.
That is awesome.
Yeah. But, it's very apropos for me because I got it after I got in that TC leaving El Camino.
Yep. When you were doing what?
Oh, I was getting lunch.
Yes, of course you
were. It was Del Taco, and there was taco everywhere in my car. It was my Honda. I had a Honda Accord at the time.
Oh, I thought it was a truck.
No, I had a Honda Accord, and I hit it. I turned in front of a Chevy 2500, and it bent my frame.
Wow.
And I remember I went back to the tow yard later to get stuff out of my car and not thinking about it. And this was like a week later in the summer, and all of that food had just like gone bad, and there was like thousands of flies. It was like a dead body was inside. It was terrible. Yeah. Wow. So it was pretty bad. So, but it was interesting at the same time. So,
do you remember any of the? Did you work the 4th of July events at Torrance?
I worked a couple of them. Actually, I didn't work a couple of my. No,
somebody's either coming or going.
Oh, that was the door. Oh. As a employee, not a volunteer, I didn't work any. Actually, I'm sorry, I did. I worked one as an employee as a cadet, and it was at the park, the giant park,
Wilson
Park, and they had a fireworks show.
Yes,
and it was like Tim and Tom Stark.
Yes.
Those are some working and Tim, who was the taller, skinny one, I think, the lieutenant at the time, and Tom, I probably have them mixed up.
I think you have them mixed up.
Okay, so whichever of the Stark, the lieutenant, basically was just like, oh yeah, just go patrol the park. Let us know if you see anything on 925. Don't approach anybody. Don't do anything. Give direction. And I was just like, okay, cool, no worries. And then Tom or Tim, the other one, was dispatching out of the Western White House.
Oh wow!
And oh man, he literally was just like
over it. Probably.
Oh yeah. But it was so much fun because it was like the first time I got where they were just like, yeah, go have fun, uniform, do whatever you want, and I was just like, oh, this is what you guys do. You just kind of go around and wait for something bad to happen and see it and deal with it. And I'm like, oh, I could do this. I could do this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then I remember somebody threw somebody threw something that was on fire still into one of the big trash bins. And I was like sitting there for like 20 minutes. I'd call it on the radio. I'm like, hey, can you get the fire department roll over here to this like industrial sized trash can because it's smoldering?
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, yeah, okay, whatever. And it was like 20 minutes later, and I got on the radio. I'm like, hey, can you guys call them back and get an ETA? And they're just like, oh no, we never called. And I'm like,
that's fun.
Okay, because there's flames coming out of the trash bin now. And he's just like, oh, okay, just keep everybody away from it. And I'm like, all right. And is nothing in reality, right? But when you're 18 years old and you're just like, oh hell yeah, I get to do fun stuff on a radio.
So that's the funny thing is you say 18, but I don't know if people know you, but you got to explain how tall you are too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a little person.
No, not at all.
So yeah, I mean, I guess that it does help. They probably part of why they let me go by myself. My 6'5", 300+ frame is just walking around after football practice going like, hey, what's up, guys? Yeah, it was a lot of fun, though. I mean, I would have been your partner
for sure because that,
hell yeah.
Shoot.
Back in the day.
Those are other stories, though.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Those would have been, what was it back in the day? It was before they had the 9 designator?
10.
It was, but they had
fives. They were 5s.
Yeah, they were 5s. So 5 was patrol.
Yeah.
It would have been like 5 King 2 or something like that.
Oh, that was the canine then right there.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's what like our dreaming was when we were out. We were like, oh, we're going to do this. And then lo and behold, none of us.
5 David for DUI. I remember that.
Yes. No, because they were traffic. It was 6. 5 was patrol. 6 was traffic, I believe. They were like 6 David 1 or 6 Tom something or other.
Yes.
Yeah. So nobody's going to understand anything of what we just said.
Now they're 9s.
Yeah. Nobody's going to understand anything of what we just said. But yeah, it was so much fun. Like when you were working, was there anything that you were just like, holy shit, didn't expect that? Other than like random calls that came in?
I think working for the place I worked for, the college, it was up in the air because you never knew what it was going to be. Mm-hmm. And the vision really is obviously the community and the school and the staff. So we got called for things from like, hey, can you go make sure that I turned off my coffee pot in my office kind of nonsense, which I say nonsense, but yes, I mean, it's important to start a fire, whatever. But, why don't you check your stuff before you leave?
Well, yeah, that and, you're supposed to be sitting there doing like 911.
Yeah.
And people are calling because, oh, man. That was like, did you hear the stuff in the intro, though?
Yes.
The stuff that gets me is kind of like that stuff where it's like, people calling 911 because their order's not right at the drive-through and stuff like that. It kind of like, I get it. I get that you're upset that you want food. I mean, I'm a fat guy. I like my food to be right too, but it's so aggravating.
So have you had one of those calls?
Oh, dude, I get them like once a week.
Oh, see, that would drive me crazy. I never got any calls like that.
So, but that and like what's starting to annoy me now more and more and more though, like, I can't even begin to tell you how many homeless calls I take a day.
Yes.
I take probably, my coworkers are going to object to this, but I take probably like when I'm sitting phones for 12 hours, like 130 to 150 calls a day. They're going to say I take like 50, but that's not true.
No, I've seen you up there. I've sat with you. You had like 3 pursuits in like an hour's time.
Yeah. But I swear to God, of those 100 plus calls, at least 50% of them now are either parking calls or homeless calls.
Jeez.
It's so bad.
Well, see, the crazy thing over there is when I was leaving or when I left, that's the whole COVID.
Yeah.
So we actually shut down and locked the front door so nobody could come in.
Oh, that's nice.
And there wasn't school.
So nobody was there.
So nobody was there. I mean, yes, you had staff and some classes that you had to be there, like the fire classes and the nursing and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But other than that, we had really little to no calls.
Yeah. I mean, that is kind of like sometimes, because I work graveyard, I work weekends right now. So I'll look when I get on duty, because they'll have a bunch of calls still pending that just haven't been set yet.
Yeah.
And I'll look and then like you have a couple guys, like, and you know which ones are. They have like one thing they've done all night long. Yeah. And it says like station training for the last like 9 hours. And you're like, I kind of get it, but at the same time, I'm like, God, I wish I could do that.
Of course.
Hell yeah.
Of course.
So we all know that. We all know that we want to get our degree while at work. And I'm doing that, so I can't object.
Or run the side business.
Or run the side business. I remember when I was dispatching there, I had a laptop. I was playing, this is going to age me, I was playing Dungeons and Dragons, man. And World of Warcraft. I played World of Warcraft, not Dungeons and Dragons. I played World of Warcraft so much. Like, literally, it was like 9 straight hours a night of World of Warcraft. And Jeff Lewis always would find out I was starting to play and would do traffic stops as soon as I would do something.
Oh man.
Yeah. he always just messed with me like that, which was fun.
You remember there was one ex-cadet who got trained for dispatch that brought in his like Xbox and stuff in too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you guys used to be able to go into the like conference
TV,
training room where the big TV was and plug it in and watch movies and stuff like that.
I think you're bored for those 12 hours. You're walking around everywhere in that.
Hell yeah. So, but one of the great things about working at Elko though is you get to have somebody come and relieve you if you wanted to go eat dinner or something.
That depends who it is.
Yeah, I mean, depending upon who's working. So you could just call them and be like, "Hey, good night, 10:19. I gotta go."
Right.
So, but I remember, oh man, there was one time I was working there and I had to
go.
And so I was in the bathroom, and apparently during that time, Gardena or somebody had gotten into a pursuit that ended or terminated on the campus.
Oh, that's fun.
And all the officers were in the station. I was in the bathroom, and the hotline for RCC was just ringing, just ringing and ringing and ringing and ringing. And because the hotline never stops ringing unless you answer it, right?
Yeah.
So I remember I got done, I went back and I was like, oh, the hotline. Answered, nobody was there. And Adrian had sent me like 6 messages. And I was like, oh, I'm here. And she's like, oh, don't worry about it. We're cool. We're just letting you know we're on the campus, blah, blah. And then the very last message in my queue was like, make sure you flush. And I was just like,
wow.
Oh, damn, she found out.
They knew.
Oh, yeah, she knew.
That's funny.
So, yeah. But hey, when you work by yourself.
And you know what? I used to be worried about that. And then it came to a point I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go. And if something happens, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I remember I took a portable in there a few times, and like Lewis, I would send him a message on the MDC. And I'm like, hey, man, don't do anything. And I knew what was going to happen. Like as soon as I did, he would just do like 7 traffic stops. I'm like, you son of a bitch. You know I can't do anything right now. So, but it's always, you can always tell with the echo when you know when you're in the shitter. You always know, man.
And then we had that portable telephone too for a little while.
Yeah.
So people could bring the phone in there, and then somebody may have forgotten it in there once. Not me. This was before my time, and they took it away.
Oh, really? That's how it got taken away.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I did not know that. So you got to learn something new every day. So with the amount of time that we've done this, it's crazy to think about, really. Like, so I started volunteering for an agency in 2014, right? So, I'm sorry, in 2014, in 2004.
Yes.
Yeah. So in 3 years, it'll be 20 years, right?
Yeah.
Or I guess technically in a few days, it'll be 2 years. It'll be 20 years. I mean, that's 2/3 of a career.
Yeah.
And I'm not even out of my 30s yet. So the amount of like crazy shit that we've experienced in that amount of time it's pretty cool.
Oh, for sure.
But in your words, like, how have you seen the realm or the niche of dispatch or law enforcement in general, I'll just say, like, change? Because you're not just, we didn't even touch on this, but you weren't just a dispatcher. Like, you're still a reserve officer, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you still get to go out and play every now and then. So like, because you've been doing it basically, if you count this year, 18 years too, right?
Yeah, I would start. I mean, if you were to count even the Explorer days, because that, when it comes down to it, I think that was the best training, because you were young, you were super hungry.
Oh yeah.
And you were involved in everything.
Yeah.
And from the traffic stops to everything, I mean, they taught you everything that you needed to know then. But bringing that, I would say I learned more then than I did really, like, let's just say dispatch training.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like dispatch training, you get to learn a lot of stuff, and you get to learn how to do it all without seeing it, which I think is very, very important. But being out there, like even when I train people at work now, luckily I've been able to work in the field, not as sworn, but work in the field enough to understand the why as to how things happen.
Yes.
And when I train people who have never worked in law enforcement before, and like they're like doing something or they're en route to this call, and we have to put out A, B, and C on the radio, I try to explain to them, like, we don't just put out A, B, and C because we put out A, B, and C because the officer is doing this, or the officer is, I'm assuming, thinking this or getting ready for this, and they're asking you to say this part again because, you know, they're not just sitting there reading a screen, they're sitting there reading a screen, driving code 3, looking out for traffic, wondering what's going to happen when they get there. Is this guy armed? Am I going to have to kill this guy? And all this other stuff.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I think that was one of the things that took me a little while to understand, but now that I get that, I can kind of like teach people that as we're training, and I think that's really cool. But I'm always afraid when I'm telling these people that because, you know, I've been sitting in dispatch for 14 years. Like, I literally have been in the field maybe 2 or 3 times on ride-alongs in 14 years. Yeah. So I'm always afraid, like, do they even do this anymore? Like, I mean, when I was a cadet, before I started dispatching, like, body-worn cameras were nothing. They weren't even in existence. No. Like, I remember one officer in Hermosa Beach when this was my first year at RCC, came up with a body-worn camera on, and it was like a lapel camera.
Wow.
On his shoulder, and I was like, what the hell is that? And he's like, oh, it's a camera. I'm like, you guys have cameras? Like, oh no, I do this because I'm covering my own ass. And like because the agency only had to have the little tape recorders, and it was actual tape. It wasn't.
I remember
a
that.
little.
I remember that. So even when I was in 01, Torrance wasn't really using the tape recorders.
Oh really?
No, they didn't have anything.
Well, I remember. I don't even know if they do.
It was just starting, I think.
Okay, I don't even know if they do. I know they have body worn cameras now. But they even have cameras in the car.
Yes,
they do. Okay, because I remember for years they were like,
they were one of the last ones.
Yeah.
We were the first ones, I think, the guinea pigs at Elko.
At Elko? Well, I mean, Elko did a lot of stuff that was pretty guinea pig. That's how a lot of it got paid for.
Yeah.
So I remember I remember working there before Tiburon too. Oh God, that was bad. That's a whole nother story. But I mean, how often do you go out and play?
I try to a couple times a month. I mean, it depends. I think in the near future it'll be a lot more because I did leave to help run the business more.
Yeah.
But I mean, when I'm there, I'm having a blast.
Yeah. So, like, you've seen it evolve over 20 years. Like, what's the biggest change that you've seen in 20 years?
Probably, I mean, everybody being hired. I mean, think of when we started. Everybody was hungry. To be officers. Yeah. I think now it's not fully that case. I think it's people, okay, I'll try it out and see what happens.
Yes. So I think what you're saying is it went from being a career that everybody was dying to get into to being a job that people are like, oh, okay, I'll see if this is cool. This seems like fun.
Yes. And I think with the people thinking it's a job, you're having issues come up these days, like what's coming up.
Yeah. That's a whole other conversation
I'm
we
not
can
even
get
going
into.
there. I'm not even going
there.
there.
Yeah. I mean.
But that's just like officer-wise, even dispatch-wise. I mean, think of the calls that we used to get, just disturbing the peace, all this, and now you got the masks.
Oh yeah, I get. I mean, it's not that bad anymore because most of the time people just have stopped caring.
Yeah,
like I know it's LA County mandate, but like maybe one a day, and it's usually some like hardcore security guard that told somebody put on your mask, and they said no, you're a security guard, and the security guard gets all pissed, and they call us, and then we go out there, and it's literally like 20 seconds, and they're clear advised. It's fine. It's just a mask.
8 asked.
Yeah, I mean it's just one of those where you're just like so. But yeah, I completely agree with you. Where I think, other than the I'll just say broadly 30,000 foot view, other than the politics of policing,
yes, if
you take that out of the picture, because that's obviously the biggest change, but that's always happened. It's just we're in the middle of that flux right now.
Yes,
I would say that I kind of agree with that in that the people. I mean, given I don't work in the field, obviously, but from talking to people, like it's just changed in the idea of nobody wants to go out there and get dirty anymore.
Yes.
They just want to go out there, take a report, collect your paycheck, and go home, which I get, especially in today's environment. But man, I remember I used to, when I was a cadet at Torrance, I used to be like, I'll ride in the back seat because they were all Adam cars at night, right? And I was like, shit, yeah, I'll ride in the back seat. I'll clean the vomit out of it. I don't care. I'll sit next to the prisoner. I'm fine. Let's roll. And it was just, I don't care what happened. Like, I just had fun. And I just wanted to do it. Like, you could, like, literally, I would have paid them to let me, as an 18-year-old, ride in the backseat of a police car.
For at least 2 shifts.
Oh, yeah. I would have paid them. Just been like, let's do this. It's so much fun. Like, I'm not trying to be like the big PR for policing, but man, it is the greatest freedom job in the world. Until you get to the paperwork.
Yes, but let's go back to what we're talking about. We were between 14 and let's say 19, 20. Yeah. So we were having a blast.
04.
Yeah, we were having a blast. Not really knowing all the legalities and stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Well. Yeah, it wasn't like a policy understanding of it. It was literally like
we're having fun.
It was literally like, hey, this switch turns lights on and this guy has to obey you.
Yep.
And you're 18 years old. You're like, fuck yes, let's do this.
Or we're going to this call and hey, watch what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Like,
when you talk about the back seat, so I rode in the back seat one of the shifts, and I tried not to because I usually went with like K9 or CSI because they were solo units, but a couple of graveyards went in the back seat, and we got coffee. I want to say Starbucks, and I'm in the back, and I put my windbreaker down to sit on it because I don't want to sit on a plastic fantastic seat.
Man, you were such a
Right. Well, hold on. It
prissy little
gets
man.
better. So you can't hear anything in the back seat.
Oh, hell no.
So I hear the radio faintly, but I don't know what's going on, and we just gun it, and I'd lose my coffee. I tossed it out of the window because we were moving. So we're rolling code, and it's a neighboring city in a fight.
Okay.
An officer. So we were in the south end, and I just remember like sliding because it's plastic, and we're sliding back and forth in the back seat, trying to hold on to anything, and there's nothing to hold on to.
Oh yeah, I remember I used to like pin one leg against the passenger seat, and then like I'm tall enough to where I would be able to push my upper body into the driver's side door, so I would be like pinned in it.
Oh yeah,
and I didn't fit back there well anyway.
Fun time.
So yeah, I mean, there's nothing like
those ride-alongs were the best.
Oh yeah,
though. I mean, I were you ever in Pursuits?
Oh yeah, oh dude. So I remember I was at RCC, and I had just gotten the task force position for the DUI task force dispatch. And I somehow finagled them to let me do a ride along before I started dispatching for it. And they're like, okay, cool. So I got put with a chippy who was a motor. And the motor was like, well, shit, I'm on a bike, so just wait at your station. I'll go get an actual unit, come back and get you, and we'll go to Nate. And I'm like, cool. And he comes and picks me up at RCC. We go to Gardena at the donut shop at was it Western and is Marine, the big donut?
Yes,
I don't
something
know.
over there.
Some over there. Yeah. And task force unit finds a stolen in South Redondo, and the chippy.
Is it to do with the crazy hair?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't remember that.
I can only envision somebody.
I don't remember that, but the chippy was literally, he just looked at me and he's like, want to have some fun? I'm like, hell yeah, let's roll. So, I mean, I've been, hell yeah. So he turns on code, and we're rolling code in a CHP Ford Crown
Vic. Through like
Vic.
3 cities.
Through like 15 miles in an old Crown Vic.
Wow.
And we were just starting to enter the charger phase. Yeah. So this Crown Vic, and it was a chippy, like spare unit that they had.
Man.
Yeah. So we're getting there, and I swear to God, I'm smelling as we're rolling. I'm like, he's like, yeah, those are the brakes. I'm like, okay. Are we okay? He's like, yeah, they're still working. I'm like, okay. And we finally get to like 2 intersections before, and we're coming up on 190th and, no, not 190th. That's where we went. It was like PCH headed south towards 190th in Hermosa, and we're still going there, right? And the light's red. I think it was PCH through 190th southbound. And he slams on the brakes, and it doesn't stop. Like, it just doesn't even slow down. Like, and I'm like, red light. And he's like, yeah, I know. And like, he didn't admit it. I know, but he was like, the brakes were gone.
Yeah.
And we finally get to the stop, and as soon as we get there,
you jump out.
Like, I jump out. And I walk up, and like there's like 15 officers. It's such overkill because the whole task force is there, and they've got like ARs and 40s and pepper ball guns on this guy. And I'm like, it's just a straight stolen, right? And he's like, yeah. And they're like, it's good training. I'm like, okay, cool. And they lock this guy up, and I turn around and go back to the car, and literally there's like flames coming out of the Crown Vic front tire from the brakes that are on fire. And I'm like. And I walked up to the chippy, and I was just like, I'm not going to put this shit out of you. And I asked him, like, hey, do you got a fire extinguisher in the back? He's like, yeah, why? And I'm like, the brakes are on fire. And he turns around and he's like, shit. And runs in, pops it. And I'm back there, and I get the fire extinguisher out. And I blew it. Oh, it was like.
That's priceless.
Oh, yeah.
Right there.
Oh, yeah. And then, because that unit had 100,000 plus miles on it.
That was the nail right there.
Hell yeah. So, but those are the fun ones,
the
man.
task force night. You went out with me before, right?
Yeah.
We were going to because we did tows when we worked it.
Yeah.
We towed the cars. People may not know that.
Or
we weren't over there pulling people over or anything.
Yeah. We literally were like, the officers pulled people over, and we would go do the paperwork for them.
Yeah.
Wait for the tow truck
or like transport sometimes too. Stark had.
I never did that.
Oh, I transported for Stark before.
Yeah. Well, that's probably because he had 7 people locked up in his back seat.
2 stops and 1 more going.
Yeah. He was the guy that, he'd pull somebody over, and then he'd see somebody driving, and he would just wave at him with a flashlight, and they would be dumb enough to stop.
That's it.
Right in front. And then he'd go do FSTs on 2 of them.
Exactly.
And you're sitting there like, this is the most egregious officer safety.
But it's awesome.
In history.
It is awesome. That was the records. That's why he was always Adam 1.
Hell yeah, he was.
And who was his partner's name?
He was with Jeff LeGreek, I think.
No, the other.
Oh, Mike Mitchell.
There you go.
I still get, so he's been retired like
yes.
15 years, right?
Uh-huh.
I still get text messages from him about pursuits.
That's awesome.
All the time. Like I just get a message from like it's a random generalized number, computer number, and I always know it's like it just says Pursuit Channel 9. I'm like, oh.
That's awesome. Yeah. So when they did the stops, I want to say one of them jumped in my car and we transported somewhere, and then the other one transported somewhere else. So they were double booking every time.
Yeah. I mean, I remember there were times, and this isn't like this today.
No.
But I mean, you'd have 17, 18, 19, 20, sometimes up to 25 DUIs in one night.
Yep.
Now they go out there, they're lucky, the entire task force, if they get 3.
Yeah, I remember.
And I don't know if I think it's a combination of, like you were discussing earlier, it's a combination of that lack of willingness to do it.
Yes.
A. B, the current political climate, because DUIs are not as serious as they were.
Correct.
And C, I don't have any evidence to back this up other than my own subjective thinking, but I think Uber has played a lot into the minimization of DUIs.
I think so too. So a few shifts ago, when I was last out there, we did the task force, and like you said, there was only maybe 5 total for the night.
And there was probably like one unit that got 2 of them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's I see. I mean, the ones that we got were, I mean, come on, you know the places to go to get them.
Yeah, all the time. You just hang out next to a block away from a bar.
Hang out in Hermosa. You're gonna get 1 or 2.
Yeah, or the South Torrance. What was that the?
Oh yes.
Off of what was it, Camino Calimero?
Yes.
The no lazy or no bad days stickers are always in the back of the cars there. I forgot what the name of that bar is though.
Yeah, so I mean it was crazy. But like you said, back in the day they had those dinners for everybody, and
that's because it was all grant funded back then.
There was a lot of people that were really into it and cared about it.
The Christmas deployments for the Void the 100 grant were
those were crazy.
I mean, you'd have 10 Atom cars, 3 Paul units, and then you'd have that old CHP motorhome that they converted to the mobile breathalyzer.
That dude was a crack.
Oh yeah, too. And man, I mean, from the time you sat down until the time you stopped, you were working as in dispatch and in the field. But since they not took the grant away, but since the grant went away, it's like any unit that or any city that has a traffic unit working because they have to pay for it. Sends somebody to play, and it's just not as not as much fun.
No, it's not,
because a lot of those guys either are just working overtime and they know they don't want to do the 2 hours of DUI paperwork for like maybe a 50% chance of conviction, or maybe you get a higher chance of conviction, but at the same time, it's like it's just a slap on the wrist now.
Yeah.
So
it's the overtime for them.
Yeah, it's the overtime, and they don't want to spend it doing paperwork. They want to drive around and do nothing.
Yep.
So, and I always used to remember there were certain officers that I'd get messages from, like you'd take like referrals from other agencies that would do the stop, and then they'd want a task force unit to come and take it, and you get a message at the beginning of the night, I'm not going into Inglewood, so don't even send me one.
But you have those ones that want them too.
Yeah. So
like the 2 that we were talking about.
Yeah, those are the Inglewood officers. Yeah. That was one of the Inglewood ones. But it was funny because you could always tell the cities that had easy booking procedures because those officers were always there. Like, I don't remember what city it was, but you would just take them there, give them the body, give them your notes, and then go do paperwork. And then all of the booking paperwork would be done by the jailers.
But besides that too, you got to think. So if people don't know, the task force is the whole South Bay. So you got, let's say, the Hermosa guys or gals. They don't want to hang out in Hermosa. They want to go play somewhere else that they're not used to. So you see them in like Gardena and stuff.
Yep.
And then you see the Gardena guys over in Hermosa.
Yeah, because they just want to sit there and look.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's what was great about it.
Look for DUIs, that is.
Yes. Because Hermosa Beach is nothing but yeah, you know. So yeah. But you have to admit, like, there has to be like 1 or 2 incidents. Like, I have a couple that I know of off the top of my head, like, that are going to be, oh shit, I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
So
I do have a few. So one of them is when I first got off of training, and like I said, we were solo dispatchers. I had a foot pursuit, some kind of like fire or something, and something else going on. 3 things.
All at the same time.
And this was brand new. So this was the old school. You had Lewis, Ugalde, like a bunch of the old school guys over there. And it was just a circus.
Oh, I bet.
Like, I don't know who's chasing who and what's doing what. Like, I had it down, but then again, you don't know what's going on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Where
then,
you're like...
Then you have the cadets go on the radio. I'm like, hey, you go away.
Yeah, now they're on their own channel, right? Yeah. So back in the day.
Yeah, exactly.
Back in the day, everything was on the same channel all the time. So, yeah, that's... I mean, nowadays, I'll like last week, I remember they were working a 245, and another 245 popped up, and they had a 1033 going, so I'm not supposed to talk on the radio, right? And they were just like, And I'm like, yeah, well, I got to put this out because it's another 245. And literally they were just like, oh, I'll respond here. And then the other unit was like, oh, no, I'll keep you on here. And then 2 of the units that were on the first ADW, ADW, hopped in another officer's unit.
What?
And drove and used their MDC to put them on the other call.
That's confusing.
So I had unit IDs all jacked up. It was like 3 David was supposed to be on 2 David's call, and 2 David was putting himself as 2 David on the new 240, and I was just like, and I just like gave up. And at the end, I was like, so who's on this call?
Yep.
And then they were just like, I am. I'm like, okay, cool, that makes sense. So,
well, you remember when we transitioned from the call signs at Elko to the current call signs?
Yeah,
nobody could keep up with the Davids and the.
Yeah,
they didn't know.
I remember
what was
for a
going
long
on.
time they just kept reverting back whenever they got stressed to calling themselves whatever the old call sign was. So. And dude, it's like that still. Like we took on Culver City. It's been like 5 years now, but when they first came over, it was all the time. They would just revert back to what they knew when they were stressed.
Yeah.
And that's totally logical, and everybody does. Like you'll always know when a chippy officer or a former chippy officer is now an officer at a smaller agency, at least in the South Bay, because he'll always say like code for X-ray, or he'll say yellow instead of young when the phonetics.
And that's Orange County too.
Yeah, Orange County's like that, but Orange County also does the military phonetics.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Or you'll always know if it's an LAPD guy because there won't be any codes.
Code
it's
6,
just
code 6.
Yeah, it's code 6 for everything, and then everything else is just plain English. Yeah, you're like, I just pulled somebody over on this location, and this is their license plate, and I'm clear. And you're like,
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
So yeah, but it's always interesting how they do that. So, but yeah, I mean, I remember working at El Camino, and there was times when I remember one very specific time when I had answered a 911 call, and it was a 459 to a vehicle that had just occurred. And I was like, do I put it in the call? Because I couldn't type well. I was like, do I type it in the call? Or do I just put it out OTA? Or do I do it the way I'm supposed to? Or do I just put it out OTA? And I just said, fuck it. And I just asked the person the questions and like held the mic open as I was asking them questions, and just would repeat back everything they said so the officers knew it. And then I was just like, screw it. Afterwards, I'll just put it all in there.
Yeah.
So, but that's the kind of crap you got to do when you're on your own. It's a lot different. So, we still get that when you call other agencies sometimes in the middle of the night, or they're just so understaffed that.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I call some agencies on the hotline now, and I know they have 2 to 3 people working, but it's so busy. Like they just put the phone down and ignore you until they're ready. And I mean, I get it. I do that too, but like it gets chaotic sometimes. So, but I mean, it's just kind of the way it is, I guess. So,
I mean, remember the shooting that we had, the OIS. I was negotiating with the caller, and
which one was that?
That was I want to say like 2013 or 2014.
It was on the college.
Yeah, the whole world.
Should I remember this?
The whole world showed up.
I don't remember that at all.
So. We get this call, and luckily I had somebody else with me. I can't believe it. We had somebody else. So it was 2 of us up there, and I was working the radios, and he was working the phones. And mind you, there's only 2 spots, so it's pretty tight.
Yeah. And then the sergeant walks in or knocks on the window.
Of course. Or somebody that's in the middle of something going on.
Or the chief walks in, hey guys, what's going on?
Exactly. That's not the time. Anyways.
I'm going to lock the door. Go in the field. I'm locking the door.
They don't, but about that, we lock the door, but they still have the key, but they have the key, but that's funny. So we get the call, and I can hear him saying, you have what? And then he's like, you may want to take this call. And I still have the recording been dispatching for many years, and one of the only negotiators of the department, and went to trainings and stuff, and obviously certified, but never had any real world.
Yeah, that first application is like, oh shit.
Yeah, so it just kicked in. But then, like, you're asking and trying to be friendly and stuff, and so the guy originally said, "Oh, I have a hostage, and I think he said like $10,000, whatever it was. We have to refer back to the tape, but I know he said he had a hostage and wanted some money." So I'm like, all right, well, it's going to take me some time to do that and start seeing where the heck are you? Like, are we really on the campus? What's going on here?
Yeah.
So then we have cameras everywhere, almost everywhere. Yeah. I mean, obviously where he was, we didn't have one. So with some help of other people, we finally located where he was.
Was this a 911 call or was it a 7-digit?
This was a transfer from you guys.
7-digit or 911?
911 transfer from you guys.
I was saying, because if it's a 7-digit, the first thing my head went to was it's a swatting call. But if it's a 911 call, it's more like we have the ability to somewhat track people. So.
Yeah. So, and it's crazy because remember it was Kelly.
Oh, yeah, Kelly.
So ever since that incident, we've always
went back
been
tight.
Yeah. So, so just trying to get all the info from him and finally figure out where he was, and you hear the tape has a combination of the phone call, the radio calls, and people's live recordings. The officers,
like their
the officers,
audio recordings?
body cams and stuff.
Oh, so this was like edited for court kind of thing.
They didn't have the body cams, I want to say.
But they had like the audio recordings going.
Correct. Yeah. So everything
'Cause it's-
combined, you see everything live.
Back then it was like two separate entities.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, a camera and a recorder. Yeah.
So then I'm talking to him, and I'm actually getting somewhere with him, and then you just hear the commands being yelled at. I'm like, oh, no.
They just said, fuck it, we're rolling.
And you hear the shots, and I think you hear me like sigh or something, and I put the phone down, but I keep it live
Well, that's good because
to keep the recording going.
the one a gunshot on the phone, I'll tell a story about. I said, oh shit, on the recording and then hung up.
What?
Yeah. So I was working complaints, and this girl was calling because she got into a verbal with her man, and it was over dinner, and how he didn't like dinner. And long story short is you hear her say, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. He's tired of my cooking. Okay. I'm like, okay. And then he's like, oh, he just got his gun. And I'm like, oh, this just got real. And then I don't remember exactly what he said, but he said something to the effect of, I'm so done with your shitty cooking, and then offed himself on the phone.
Oh, wow.
And then she said, oh shit, and hung up the phone. And then I said, oh shit, and hung up the phone. And like, call him back, and ended up this guy had committed suicide and all this stuff. And the other oh shit on the phone was, you can hear the officer, I'm on the phone with her, as the officer walks in, and because it's a small city, right? It takes like minutes. 45 seconds to get anywhere in the city, code 3 with no traffic. And the officer walks in, and he screams, oh shit. And you can hear it on the phone. And that's when I'm like, okay, there's my cue to hang up.
Yep.
And I hung up the phone.
Yep.
Yeah. But I mean, it's those interesting times when you're like, oh, I think that was that was a gunshot. Yeah. So, and it's rare that you hear that. I mean, you still hear it sometimes, but it's like one of those ones where you're like, oh, that wakes you up in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
So
no, it wasn't. I mean, and you had multiple for this one. You had the AR and the handgun. So
they just lit him up.
You could hear it, and yeah, he did brandish, like everything was legit. He
Yeah.
did brandish, and it wasn't a real gun, but he had suicide notes left and everything.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So, suicide by cop.
He was trying.
Oh, okay.
Didn't work out.
Well, it happens. So I mean, that was like I remember one of my supervisors who was part of a CNT team was doing CNT basically from dispatch for some guy, but it ended up being in LAPD's jurisdiction. And,
Oh wow.
I'm going to try and get her on the show later, but tell the story. But long story short is like, she's working on this guy for like hours.
Wow.
Hours and hours and hours and hours. And LAPD just says, fuck it. And they kick the door. And they blast this fool, right? LA does.
And that crushes the person.
Oh yeah. And I remember she was just like, well, that was a waste of like 6 hours of my life. So yeah, I mean, it was bad. And
it's bad because during the trainings, I mean, you get all these different scenarios and stuff, and you want a good outcome.
yeah, absolutely you do.
You want a good outcome, a safe outcome. And you know it's not always going to be that.
No.
But you kind of take it personally, and they tell you don't, but there's no way not to.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Even if, like, let's say a jumper, we had all that. I wasn't there for the jumper. We had a jumper at the school too, and
okay, was it Lauderdale in
it
the
was
channel?
the five level.
Oh,
that
okay,
one, that one
yeah.
too. The onto RBB was one, off the 5-level structure, the new one, and then off the new building.
Okay,
There's been a few.
Yeah,
but I wasn't there for any of those.
I just remember the Lauderdale one which is the RBB one, because I was gone before the big structure got put in.
Yeah, it's crazy. But like I said, I enjoy that part of the job. I love
because it's changed. It's different
stuff.
Yeah,
and during the trainings, like, it just shocks you. The coolest thing about the trainings, the first day you get there for the negotiation trainings, they put you through an actual like scenario. They're like, we're doing this for a reason. We're recording it and everything. Okay.
Oh, okay.
And then when you're done with training, they go through the same scenario, and you hear yourself, the differences.
Oh,
what
I
you've
bet it's
learned.
fast.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is pretty cool. Dude, there's such good training out there. Like, I got to go through the Kim Turner's, which is like a really well-known training. She's like Kim Turner LLC. She's like runs a training program. And she just got certified through Post to do CTO program.
Nice.
And we went through their first like COVID CTO program, which was all online. And I swear to God, man, I walked out of every single one of those classes with the world's biggest headache because I was thinking so hard, and it was so good.
Yeah.
Like, it was so good. Like, anybody I talk to who's in dispatch, if they ever talk to me about training or want to know about training, anything, I always tell them, like, you got to do the Kim Turner CTO program. It's so good.
That's awesome.
And literally, it's like 4 days worth of just SMART goal setting and learning how to do SMART goals and learning how to train and then learning how to write reports and learning how to write evals. And it's so good.
That's awesome.
And she is chill as shit. Like, she's in there literally like eating French fries, just bullshitting with you, having a good time. And then like, she can do that where like she'll just have a conversation and it just turns right into, this is why we just taught you that. And you're like, oh shit. I literally just did everything you said and I didn't even know it.
Wow.
Which is so good. So
it's funny we're talking about training because, you know, you and I went to dispatch school at the same time.
we went to post at the same time?
Yeah, you and I did.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
We went on and somebody called the school and had them like mess with us too over there, or mess with me at least. We had to do our little projects, and we were doing some project. It had to do like, I want to think we had to draw something, and you did like cologne, or we had to describe somebody else with our drawings, I think it was.
Okay.
And I think you and I took each other as partners, of course.
Yeah, because we knew each other.
Yeah. And I think I did for you like driver's training and stuff like with driving.
Oh,
you remember it?
I kind of do, yeah,
Yes.
because we used to go out all the time, and you always
Yes.
used to be like the fucking guy that was drowning in cologne and
Yep,
smelling all
that's
nice,
it,
and I'm the guy
that's
that
it.
just is like, oh, look, I got soap.
Yep, that's
Yeah.
it. That was funny.
Okay. That was Golden West, right?
That was Golden West. 3 weeks long.
Yeah,
I
it was
think
the 3-week basic post. Yeah.
uh-huh.
That was, oh man. Did you know that there was a bet amongst my coworkers, but the people in that course about how long it would take me to get fired?
Really?
Yeah. Because I was the guy like, oh yeah, I came into that and I was just like.
I think I remember that. But
Yeah.
remember there's some people that were in our class too that didn't make it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There was
Like
two
specifically
people,
for your
there were
department.
two people in our department in that class that made it, I think, 2 or 3 weeks.
Yes.
One of them,
The guy was quicker, I think.
He was. I remember he had never done anything in
Yeah.
policing before, so it was like just massive culture shock. And that was in, 07 when I started, and it was just, that's back when things were
Yeah.
hopping crazy and fun. So
Definitely.
yeah. But I remember our last day of that basic post, we all went to, we got done. It was like 10 in the morning. We had taken our final. We were all done, and we all went out to lunch. And I remember that like the whole class was just like, let's have shots. And I'm like,
I didn't have a shot. I wasn't 21.
yeah. I remember I was. I remember the whole class was just like, okay. And I'm like,
fun.
wait, what? We're allowed to do things like we're done. We're not on pay anymore. We're just kind of this is post class.
Yep.
So, and every post class I've been to like that has done that. Like after the course, everybody just goes out, and I'm like, this is actually really cool, because one of the great things about post that does that, and I'm sure it's part of their plan, is the networking aspect of it. So,
and I think, and that's the biggest thing. I mean, not even just that, but the other trainings, even the officer trainings that I've done, it's meeting up with the other agencies and stuff. And,
oh yeah, absolutely.
and like you said, networking.
Yeah. So, I mean, I remember I did a couple of things for post, and then I did a drone training program for post, and they had asked me in because I won't get into how I got there, but I was in this post training program for a drone that they were building, and I was sitting in this room, and nobody had introduced themselves yet, right? Because it's the morning of day one, and I'm just sitting there.
Nobody wants to.
And I'm just sitting there going like, oh, hey, blah, 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 blah. I'm just bullshitting all these guys. And post starts, and the post, his name's Larry Elder. He works for post, and he does like, he's in charge of their training committee. And he's like, all right, everybody go around and introduce yourself. And there's 20 people in this room, right? And the very first guy that gets up and introduces himself, I don't remember his name, but he was the person in charge of the state of California fusion centers.
Okay, fun.
And I'm like, okay, so we got our chief out of the way. That's why they started there. Cool. The next guy stands up, and it's the chief of law enforcement for Cal Fire.
Oh man.
The next guy that stands up is the the fire chief for Cal Fire.
Oh wow.
The next guy that stands up is the sheriff for some county up by San Francisco, like the sheriff and coroner. And I'm like, oh, this is getting interesting. Like, these are a lot of really high-ranking people. And then the next guy that gets up is the Southern California representative for the Department of Homeland Security for infrastructure securities.
Wow.
And I'm like, how in the hell did I get in this room? And it's like just chief, lieutenant, captain. And it gets to me, and I stand up, and I'm like, I'm a dispatcher. And they're like, and what's your knowledge with this? And I'm like,
absolutely nothing.
I did a research paper in college for drone use for law enforcement and future activities. And I was invited here so that there is a dispatcher's perspective of how this works.
And then you go back in your corner.
And I sit down, and the next guy that stands up is the chief regulating officer for the FAA.
Oh, wow.
Sits down, And the next guy that stands up is the chief of Southern California law enforcement for FAA. And I'm like, holy shit. And I stayed so quiet through that whole thing. The only time I talked in that meeting was when Larry, who I'd met from other training, got up and basically would ask me questions from like this perspective. The only other people that weren't brass, there was one sheriff's deputy from, I don't remember what the name of the county is, but it's a super rural. It's like a 1,200 square mile county, but it's all ag, like 100% agriculture. So there's like 3 deputies in this 1,200 mile county that's working at one shift, right? 3 deputies per shift. And he was there because he was like, literally, we'll respond 45 minutes, code 3 to anything, because that's how long it would take to get there. And his perspective was they had already started using them, but they were using like drones as a tool to get places faster and further away so that they wouldn't have to basically fly across people's ag land to try and find people or doing search and rescue. And then there was one other guy who was he was like a fusion center rep for San Diego. And he was just like he was just an officer that was working as part of it. But there was like FBI JTTF there who was talking about like their drone applications and how because this was like 6 years ago. Like drones are super normal now in law enforcement, but like when this started, it probably was 6 years ago. It was probably like 4. But they were like JTTF was, and their HRT teams were using drones. He was saying for like portable repeaters for radio systems. And they weren't just like, oh, look, a camera and a flashlight. They were literally like, we're sniffing chemicals in the air. We would fly them over sporting events to see if they would like pick up anthrax and all this stuff. And I'm like, how in this is possible? Like, I had no idea this technology even existed. And like the DHS guy and I started talking. He was like, oh yeah, there's this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And I'm like, I literally was just like, I have no idea any of this existed whatsoever. Like, am I going to die tomorrow? I mean, he scared the shit out of me. And I was like, and now like every department uses drones everywhere because it's just so much cheaper than an airship, but it's not as cool. Definitely. But yeah, I mean, I remember going out to lunch with those guys. We would always, because it was in San Diego, we would always go to the soup plantation next to the Marriott. And man, we would talk for like, me and the DHS guy, we would talk for like hours, and he was just this wealth of knowledge, and he kind of wanted me to, or inspired me, I guess you could say, to go for my emergency management degree. But I remember I bought him soup plantation a couple times just to have those conversations. Yeah. So, but speaking of food, let's get to the most important part of this, because we are over an hour so far. That's okay. You are well known in the South Bay for eating at a establishment at 190th and Crenshaw. Oh, possibly. But which we might go there for dinner tonight. Maybe. So, who knows? It's still early. Who knows? It is still early. So, but I do have to work at 4 a.m. So, be up for work at 4 a.m. Ouch. Yeah. What was your favorite place to eat while you were working?
Okay, so the way you say it is to eat at is difficult for us, obviously, because we can't go places for the most part. For the most part. True. However, where we worked, sometimes we could go somewhere and have somebody cover for us. Now, we're not saying we're going to go sit in a restaurant per se, but pick up our own food and actually have a physical break from the 4 walls that we have to sit in. Yeah. So, I think more recently, I'm known for Chick-fil-A.
Oh, it's so good.
Because it's right across from the school.
Oh, that's right. They built one right there. Next to, what was that? Do you remember that called? Bonello's?
Yep, Bonello's. And then, I could just hear the whole call again. Yep. So, Chick-fil-A, I would say, is number 1 because of the ease. You can order on your app. You don't have to give anybody money. You don't have to give an order, and then they're going to start whining.
You literally can go to the drive-thru and say, mobile car.
Exactly. Like, okay. So, I think that was my favorite for what it was, the food, and for ease. Yeah. But other than that, I mean, you can't go wrong with a pizza.
That's true.
And closer to the times I was departing from that department, a couple officers and I would pitch in and get like some really good pizza from a little far away.
Rizzo's?
No. Ooh. No. What the heck is the name? I can't think of the name right now. I'll think of it in a second. It's off Anza and 190th.
Anza. Oh, next to the Use It Play It Again Sports Place.
Yeah, next to the Rite Aid and stuff.
Yeah, they used to have.
It's not Bonello's.
No, it's not. But they used to have like playing cards of canines on the walls there.
They still do. And
They still do? Okay.
And that's where like sometimes we go before DUI.
Yeah, that's how I found the place originally. Was we went there for with the Starks and the coffee.
Yes,
Starks and coffee.
That's it.
And for there, yeah.
Dang, what the heck is the name?
I have no idea.
We'll think
Google
of it.
solves all.
We're gonna think of it in a second.
Yeah.
But so pizza, we would order because that was like some real pizza.
Oh yeah, it wasn't Domino's.
It wasn't Domino's, and I love Domino's, but it wasn't any of that nonsense. But I think that really I wasn't into like potlucks or anything like that. I'm very I'm very picky.
Yeah. Yeah.
So even like when we had
you don't like a lot of people touching the same same container.
So like when we had holiday stuff, I'm the ass that eats prior to.
Yeah.
And then comes and makes it look like I'm eating something.
I literally have a pot of chili sitting in my stove at home for work tomorrow. That's just cooling enough for me to
have a little something.
Have a little. No, well, I didn't make that much, but total random side note, like this supply chain issue really fucked with my chili recipe this week because I couldn't find the right tomato sauce. So I had to use like
some fake stuff.
Basically I had to use like supposed to use like
some ketchup.
No, so basically I actually had to use tomato sauce instead of like whole tomatoes. So it's like super super thick.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I've been thinking this whole time, like, man, maybe if I just throw a little water, a little wine in there, and cook it off, it'll try and water down. But yeah, screw this whole supply chain issue.
Right.
Side note, sorry.
Oh, I know. Business wise too.
Yeah. So yeah, as I walk through 7,000 shirts to walk in this room.
I'm just saying. Giorgio's Pizza.
Giorgio's, yes. They have good sandwiches too.
That's the spot right there.
That place and Rizzo's, man. I don't even know if Rizzo's still exists, but
I think so.
With their little garlic and nuts, and then they had the little cinnamon nut. Oh man, those cinnamon nuts.
I mean Giorgio's, but as far as pizza, that's probably one of my favorites besides Sorrento's in San Pedro. Have you ever taken you to Sorrento's where I used to live?
No, but I've been there.
Yes.
That place, and what was the name of that sandwich shop?
The Busy Bee.
Busy Bee.
Yeah.
Oh, man, the Busy Bee in Pedro. That was good too.
We've done lunch runs to Busy Bee from El Camino.
Damn. Well, I mean, back in the day at RCC, we used to do lunch run too. Like before our lawyers were like, it's kind of a insurance issue if you get into TC and you're on duty, which I get.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we used to. I always used to go pick up food for everybody on shift. It was awesome. So
heck yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's wow, we're at an hour and 10 almost. So, Mike, thank you so much for being a part of the show here. It's been our longest episode so far, although it's only been 3 of them. So
right. Well, and we still can do more.
Yeah, we've only gotten through like 10 minutes of story time.
Yeah.
So
there's plenty of more stories. It's funny that we're ending now because a customer just pulled up. From a neighbor agency to get some stuff for an event of theirs.
Oh, well, we will have to talk to him and see if he wants to be a part of episode in the future.
Yes.
Because I don't know what episode it might be.
I was going to say. Because I know you said this is 3.
Yeah, this is 3. So it's been kind of a interesting run. Big thanks to Amazon for letting me use my Amazon points.
Nice. Perfect.
So, that's how I basically got the equipment to do this. So, but anyways, again, thank you, Mike. And why don't you give another plug for your business here so that we can hopefully get some people some exposure to it, and I can get some challenge coins from
Let's do it. South Bay Custom Printing. You can go to the website, and it'll take you to all the others, the Guns and Hoses, and I recently landed some schools that we contract with. So that's it.
All right. And you guys do like, well, I'm looking at the back of this business card that literally feels like a credit card.
It is. You like that, huh?
I do.
I don't want people to throw them away.
It's a little small.
But I don't want people to throw them away.
I get that. Banners, stickers, engraving, challenge coins, patches, mugs, uniforms, apparel. Damn, sports uniforms, fundraising. You do a lot of stuff here, man.
Do a lot.
Shit. So yeah, it's good stuff. I'm one of my favorite hats I have on right now is from this random place from years ago. Do you still sell this one?
Yes, I have actually. I think we were out of that one, but we have others. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's the camo thin blue line hat.
That's it.
It's pretty legit. So, anyways, thank you again, Mike, and thank you to everybody that's listening. We will hopefully be back soon with another episode of 911ish.